I wish to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people as traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on and recognise any other people or families with connection to the lands of the ACT and region. I wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this city and this region. I'd also like to acknowledge and welcome other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening today. Welcome to Safety Spotlight, a podcast from WorkSafe ACT. My name's Lish, Fejer. Now, workplace health and safety is a fundamental aspect of running any business or operation, but today we're going to really focus on what that means for small businesses. What are the WHS requirements and responsibilities when it comes to keeping employees, customers and yourselves safe and creating a work environment where everyone feels secure, supported and able to thrive? In this discussion, we're going to break down exactly what WHS means for small businesses, uncover the most common safety challenges and get some real life case studies as well as just recognising that being proactive is the key. So thanks for joining us in the podcast today. And if you're a small business, we've got some practical, cost-effective strategies to build a safety-first culture without stretching resources too thin. So let's dive in. The experts in the room today, I have Michelle Boundy. Now, Michelle comes with decades of experience, both in government, in workplace health and safety, but also is the founder of She Inspires Me. So women at work and workplace safety have always been the centre of what she does. And so we're very lucky to have her with us in the room today. Also joining us, as she does every podcast, Jacqui Agius is the ACT's Workplace Health and Safety Commissioner. Hello to you both.
Hello, Lish. It's great to be here again. And of course, Michelle, I'm feeling a bit like an underachiever here who has recorded lots of podcasts and an absolute wealth of experience. What I'm incredibly amazed by in this podcast journey, and Michelle, you might have a little bit more to add to this, is that since our first podcast, which was the one on fatigue, the feedback has been phenomenal. And that for me is just, I'm in awe of our listeners. And I want to thank those listeners listening to our safety podcasts.
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's such an honour and a privilege to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. I did listen to that podcast. It was absolutely amazing. And we know that, post-COVID-19, that we know a lot of people are really struggling. I think that's a really powerful subject, anything on fatigue and mental health. So great work.
Thank you.
It was excellent.
Well, we're all about ears, so let's get the chatter started. We're talking small business today and work health and safety. Many small business owners might assume that the size of their business exempts them from following any structure requirements. What's legally expected of small businesses, and how small do you have to be to have workplace health and safety?
So every business is required to comply with the Work Health and Safety Act and the regulations, and size doesn't come into it. It's a bit like saying if you are going to train to be a brain surgeon but you only want to work part-time, do you only do a portion of the course or do you do the entire course? I mean, who wants a brain surgeon working on their brain who haven't done a complete study? So work health and safety is a requirement, the same requirement for everyone. When we're talking about small business, though, we're talking about a business that has less than 20 workers, and there are certain pressures on those sorts of businesses. And I think we'll get into a little bit more about what we can do to support those businesses.
Michelle, you bring a wealth of expertise across decades. What brings you into this podcast with small business in particular?
So I think some of the challenges that we look at when we're small businesses that, we have limited resources. So, time, staff, money, fewer work health and safety expertise as well. So that's another challenge. Less formalised systems and documentation. So that's a big one. And the belief that incidents won't happen here. So these factors can lead into, underestimating the risks or neglecting compliance. Unlike larger organisations, small businesses may not have the dedicated work health and safety or personal systems in place, making it harder to proactively manage hazards and meet legal duties.
What do you see on the ground, both of you, with small businesses? What are the common misconceptions around their obligations?
As we'll often see is a lack of understanding of what the obligations are or what the requirements are. So the ACT, for instance, is widely known as a public sector town. We know that. I mean, it's all been in the media recently because of the election, which I hope people are going to vote for on the weekend. But in the ACT, 35% of business owners, and I think this one will interest you, Michelle, are women. And so women supporting women, of course, we know we need to look at that and help each other out. But it really is around, sorry, I'll get back to your question because you know me, Lish, I'll just go off track all the time. Things come into my mind and I'll sprout them out. But the issue is around not understanding the legal obligations in relation to work health and safety and being frightened about that, being scared that they have these legal obligations and they don't know what to do about it. And really our biggest challenge, because of the amount of small business in the country, is to help people to understand their obligations and what they can do about it in their workplace.
The proactivity.
So here's some things that are really interesting, right? So we're too small to need formal work health and safety policies or procedures. The work health and safety laws only apply to big companies in those high-risk industries. I'm just a sole trader with no employee, so therefore work health and safety doesn't apply to me. My insurance covers everything.
Yes.
So I don't have to worry about any of this.
Oh, that's a really interesting one because our inspectors hear that too. So we also regulate workers' comp, and our inspectors will go out and say, they assess, go out and check whether a person has a workers' compensation policy because it's a legal requirement. And often small businesses will say, yep, that's with our insurance broker, fine, I'll just contact them and we'll get you the policy. And then they contact their insurance broker and actually there's no workers' comp policy. They have everything else, but the workers' comp policy has run out. So it really is about that due diligence and ensuring that you as a small business have a checklist. And in fact, WorkSafe have a checklist for small business. So you can get on our website and have a look for that so that you're able to go, right, these are all the things I need to do for safety, just like you have, these are all the things I need to do to have my finances set up. I need a bank account, I need an accountant, and you tick them off and it's pretty easy, I think.
Commissioner, do you think that?
Oh, please call me Jacqui. Well, I think we're over that.
In some aspects, I think we're still looking at trips, slips and falls. Oh. And, from someone who really challenged that back in 2009, 2010 with WorkCover, actually got them to include wellbeing. Mm-hmm. So work health and safety is so much bigger than the old-fashioned thinking, well, look, unless someone's going to fall over and break their leg, I don't have to worry about it. We've got psychological injuries, bullying and harassment. We've got all those other things that fall into work health and safety. It's so much bigger than the old-fashioned slips, trips and falls.
Yeah, Michelle and Jacqui, how does that reflect in the actual legal requirements? Is it written down so businesses on their checklist can say, I've got that covered, I've done the risk assessment of that?
In relation to
psychosocial as well
hazards,
as all of the other slips, trips and falls hazards which you can see and tick off.
Yeah, so the thing about psychosocial hazards, and you are well versed on this now, Lish, but is that you can't see them in the same way that you can see physical hazards. And so that daunts people and they think, well, how can I assess and risk manage a hazard that I don't know is there? And the best way to find out what those hazards are in your workplace is to talk to your workers. And I think that's come up in every podcast. Speak to your workers, they know it, talk to them about it. But you do need to risk assess them. And of course, the risk assessment process is quite a simple process. You identify the hazard, you assess the risk, you control the risk, and you review. And I often say review a million times, because it doesn't matter how many times you review, as long as you are updating those risk assessments. That's right.
From your experience, Michelle, what are the biggest WHS blind spots for small businesses, and what are the risks of ignoring them?
I would probably look at travel. I think travel's another really big one, and making sure that workers are travelling safely and ensuring to and from wherever they're going, and making sure people get home safely.
What sort of travel are we talking about?
Long distance travelling, or making sure people have regular breaks. And I would probably say bullying and harassment, or sexual harassment.
They're the ones that you see time and time again.
I would argue absolutely.
Causes of injury.
Yeah, and I guess too, when we look at, violence, whether that's in the workplace or the community, ensuring that our staff are well supported through that as well. So we have legislation now. We know that, we've got the 10 days of leave that the people that are impacted by violence to take. So we just need to make sure that we're up to date on, legislative requirements and supporting staff through that. We know that we can reduce a lot of incidents that happen if we're engaged with our staff. If our staff feel safe and heard and respected, and are able to say, to their employer, situations happened, and that they're supported, and making sure. So we know that we've got employee assistance program, and we've got other systems in place. Small business should have those systems as well, ensuring that early intervention's the key, ensuring that our people are, seeking the support that they need.
Mm. Yeah, because we know work health and safety should be proactive and not reactive. If we're reacting to incidents once they've occurred, it's too late. Wellbeing's an important thing in workplaces, but unless we have, and I think it's Peter Miller who tells this, uses this analogy about wellbeing being the icing on the cake, but the cake is the safety and the implementing the WHS Act, because if your design and management of work and your work environment and your equipment isn't right and your workplace interactions and behaviours aren't right, it doesn't matter how much wellbeing you put on top of that. If those things are rotten, your cake's going to be rotten. So you can't put icing on a rancid cake, right? Because the cake's going to fall apart. So let's get all of those systems in place first, and then your wellbeing grows out of that. Superfriend is a not-for-profit organisation, and it's backed by superannuation and life insurance industries. And they consider a thriving workplace is one that has a positive culture where workers, teams and the organisation are collectively functioning well, that they're striving for growth, that workers feel good about themselves and their work. And they have 5 key domains which support a positive culture. And they conduct surveys every year, and what their last survey, which was in their results of their last survey conducted in August 2023, shows that there is a huge potential for small business owners and sole traders to play a positive role in the mental health and well-being of themselves and their employees. That survey shows that currently 1/3 of workers are feeling stressed and burned out, with only 11% saying that work had a positive impact on their mental health. So we've got a lot of work to do in this space. But according to the latest survey, 38% of workers had recently experienced high or very high levels of distress, and 33% of workers reported symptoms of burnout. So we're not in a great place when it comes to what we're doing in small business. But they have some really good ways to achieve a thriving workplace. And the things that they talk about, and some of these, Michelle, you will just, I know you're going to be sit there nodding your head, but you'll have something to say when I mention them. The first one is connectedness. That can be really strong in small businesses. And that's one of the great things about small businesses, because they are small and so the workers there can be really tight. And that's actually a safety benefit. And so if we start by small businesses relying on the things that they do really, really well, then it's only the things that we know from research are not so great in small businesses that we need to pick up. So let's start with, what is the great things that small businesses are doing? They're doing connectedness really, really well. They generally respond to workplace bullying really well, or it can be not as high in small businesses because of that connectedness. So there are some really good safety things happening. What we want to see is a bit more work design and a little bit more on leadership. So often when you have leaders in small business, they become part of the workforce because they're all really good mates and, they have that really nice, conducive, friendly environment. But sometimes that's not great because you actually need someone to be the leader in a workplace like that. And that person should be modelling those behaviours.
And I'm getting visions of the Office series of The Office. That's what I'm thinking of right now.
So, Michelle, you gasped
Utopia
at the third of people say that they don't have burnout or are not feeling.
Look, I think I think you've mentioned some really, really good things there. I just kind of want to unpack that a bit. I think well-being's now a word that we all kind of feel like we're drowning in. It's like the it word. But what does well-being actually mean for individuals? And what we've seen since post-pandemic is people trying to play catch up. So people are now trying to catch up on almost 3 years of their business is not doing so great. I think when we look at small business, they may not get sick leave, they may not get paid holidays, all those things that maybe government employees actually get. So I'm not surprised around, the rates of burnout or people are really struggling. I love what you said around the connectedness, and I know that when I was starting out with She Inspires Me, something I was really, really passionate about was community, connection and kindness, and about how people come together. And I think, how do we kind of measure that success as well? I think being a small business is a really, really tough gig.
Yeah, and people say to maintain that community connectedness and kindness takes an extraordinary leader, and also staff to model that even when the stresses mount.
Yeah, and being able to have downtime when people aren't coping so well. We're seeing a really high workforce of contractual staff as well, or part-time staff.
How much does it play into if you've got this lovely connected workplace with everybody's tight, and yet someone might feel ill, mightn't feel able to go to work, but because there is this team environment, does that ever play into safety risks, or not speaking out because they don't want to offend or let someone down?
It may, because it may impact on things like job demand, because other workers are trying to pick up the work of someone else who isn't as well. The other thing that we might see are workers coming to work when they're sick and they shouldn't actually be coming. And that's one of the reasons you need a good leader,
That's a
right?
really good one.
Because, the workers are so connected that They want to be at work because they don't want to let anyone in the team down. We can see that in bigger organisations as well, and medium organisations, but it is and can be prevalent when we're talking about small businesses. There are so many pressures, we know, on small businesses. They have financial pressures, they have staffing pressures, often retention of staff. So sometimes they're, working with casual staff, and so the commitment to the organisation isn't perhaps as high as those people who are permanently employed. And, certainly as the regulator, I understand those pressures of small business, but when it comes to work health and safety, we will be regulating them the same as anyone else.
Let's talk about that now. Some real life incidents where small businesses face serious consequences because they overlooked their WHS responsibilities. So can you share a few examples of what happened and how could it have been prevented? Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add, you mentioned two really, really good things there around, like if you're off, then I've got to pick up your workload and I might be struggling as well. But also we are seeing a lot of people working when they're not quite well as well. So, and I think too, just quickly, because I know we've got to move on to the next question, but I think, after the pandemic, so many people revisited their lives. So we're seeing people are happy to do part-time work or just contractual work. We've got a bakery worker severely burnt, a lack of training and PPE. So a young casual worker at the small bakery suffers third-degree burns after spilling hot oil while cleaning a deep fryer. And the worker had not had any training, didn't know about the safety drain or the fryer, wasn't working any protective like apron gloves and all that kind of stuff. So, the business faced $20,000 fine under the Work Health and Safety Act. The worker required months of medical care and time off. The business insurance premium increased significantly. The incident drew a negative local media attraction impacting on the brand. So how could it have been prevented? So a written safe work procedure, cleaning the fryer, basic PPE, heat-resistant gloves, aprons, etc. Onboarding, which is a really, really big one, and refresher training to ensure that everyone's up to date, tasks involving heat and chemicals, and a buddy system at high-risk tasks involving inexperienced staff. So I think this is... Yeah. It's an awful story, but I think it's a really good one.
Why would those have all fallen off the list for that business?
Well, if we've got high turnover, so we're all working together in this fish and chip shop, I might be trained, but then, I mightn't be on that shift or I'm having a break. And if we're seeing a turnover of staff, but we've got to invest in our people and we've got to make sure that we do regular team meetings and, regular training and development.
Yeah, exactly. Like the construction industry has that great thing called the toolbox talk. So in the morning on the site, they stand around, they talk about what the risks are or the hazards that they may see on the site today, and then they tell everyone about them and they work out how they're going to address those hazards. In the case of small business, that costs nothing. In the morning, even once a week, you talk about what is the pattern of work for this week, what are we doing, where might the hazards be, and how are we going to control those hazards. Speaking a bit, that's free. It costs nothing. And in the case of that example that you used,
it's terrible.
If they had that little bit of a chat in the morning, then someone may have been able to say, because I've said it before and I'll say it a million times, it's the workers in your workplace who will know what the hazards are and who will be able to give you the best controls for those hazards. But if there had been a discussion, then someone may have been able to say, the fryer oil needs changing.
So the hazards, looking for the hazards.
Let's
exactly.
think, and it does. We don't have to have pages and pages of documents. This can just be a simple discussion where we've noted it down.
Can I bring up that we've got such a diverse workforce? young, culturally and linguistically
Yeah.
diverse that come to work, getting this complexity of the obligations and the how to do something like clean a deep fat fryer safely might just be missed in the translation for that workforce. How does a small business manage that?
So there is a clear requirement in the Work Health and Safety Act that information must be presented to workers in a way that they understand. So that obligation does sit with the small business. And if you are having people in your workplace who are culturally and linguistically diverse, you need to find a way to communicate with them. It is your obligation as a PCBU. The same with, young workers who are new to this country, who have not experienced an Australian workplace before, and some of the requirements here
That's a really good one.
is something that is the obligation of the PCBU, and we need to address that. It is something that's really important, but there are some wonderful resources in this space. So Safe Work Australia have lots of safety information on their website that is translated into different languages, and we also have some here at WorkSafe ACT on our website, and we're starting to build those resources. It is a priority area for us, and it's really important.
Yeah.
And it's just dawned on me what I was going to say before, and that's around your culture. And so getting that right from the moment a new employee, all employees walk through the doors around having a safety culture, that we are setting the standard of this workplace. So it's not okay to miss things, or we haven't got the box of gloves run out, or don't worry about it, we'll order that next week, it'll be here on Tuesday. So not letting those things slip.
We talked about that example that Michelle mentioned, and I want to talk about a good example, because sometimes in this space we're very keen to discuss all of the issues that we see out there, but let's talk about some of the positive things. And there was a case in Canberra a few years back, and Canberra being the city where we have a lot of politicians here, so there are often lots of different and diverse groups coming into our community. There are protests, there are all different things that happen, and that can put a lot of pressure on some of our small businesses. It's also good for our economy. But there was a case in the ACT where a pub had been inundated by a group of people who'd come into the ACT, and there were a lot of young workers in that workplace, and they were there was a whole lot of workplace violence and aggression. There was a whole lot of sexual harassment. You can imagine the environment, lots of people drinking. And what this owner did, and I absolutely applaud them for their bravery and their conduct, they put their workers before anything else, and they closed down their business the next night. So they were only opening certain hours in order to protect the safety of their workers. Really simple thing. Yes, the owner came out and said, yes, it's going to cost me money, but in the long run, the protection of my staff is more important to me than anything else. And some of the people who are listening will know exactly who I'm talking about there, but I'm obviously not going to name them here in the podcast.
That's a great story. But I love that.
Do you hear
it's
positive
fantastic.
stories like that? Because often we do focus on what's gone wrong rather than what's gone right.
Well, for me, I mean, everything I've done is because of something that unfortunately hasn't gone well. But they're all the stories that I capture with She Inspires Me Women at Work. We've got the taxi company in Sydney that have got the ambassador program, and they're doing training with a lot of their stuff around the culture. And how to engage with, participants that are travelling in the car. And that program has been highly successful. And it's just been wonderful. And I was at the launch, actually, the first lot of participants that went through, because a lot of them has actually come to this country to study and are driving cabs and different things. But it's been hugely successful. So it's just been wonderful. I think there's a lot of really great things that are happening. But it is unfortunate that sometimes things do happen which drives change and creates change.
Let's talk about what's reasonably practicable, because I think that in the case that you just used, Jacqui, around the pub closing, it was practicable for them to do that.
Yes.
And wear the loss to look after the staff and the safety of the staff. For a small business with limited resources, what's the best way to work out what is reasonably practical?
And it's about the applying that risk management system. And the risk management system has the hierarchy of controls. And so we look at what controls can we put into place. And when we're talking about reasonably practicable, what we need to consider is, and the first question that we need to ask is, can I eliminate the risk, or is it reasonably practicable to eliminate the risk? Now, we often talk about financial implications there, and interestingly enough, if a matter goes to court, that really won't come into the consideration by the court. They will look at whether or not the business would become bankrupt if they needed to do something to eliminate the risk. Yes, that will absolutely play a role, but the question will always be, can I eliminate? Is it reasonably practicable to eliminate? Most cases it is. In the case of the pub example, my understanding about the pub was because they closed earlier and most of their incidents occurred later in the night after everyone had been drinking lots of alcohol, they didn't lose as much money as they thought they would, because people still came and people still bought drinks and people still bought lots of drinks. They just didn't stay in the premises when they were intoxicated, and so the risk to the workers was less.
I think that's a really good thing, and I think consultation, and I think this is where your little team meetings are a really good way to kind of look at the issues and also look at what else can we do around those high vulnerable situations as well. I think that's a wonderful example. It's a really, really good example.
Can I go just back to your mention around wellbeing, Michelle? And I know that's one of your focuses, and I love it. I'm going to just turn that on its head for a minute, because, and Lish, you'll know this because I say it often, wellbeing and mental health is not safety. Now, they might be an outcome of doing safety well, but they're not the first focus. The first focus is, what are our safe systems of work? What do we have in place to keep our people safe? Because if we're doing all of that, then what we hope we'll see is a happy, productive workplace with a good culture, and then from that comes great wellbeing and great culture. And I'm not I want to make really clear that I'm not in any way denigrating wellbeing programs, because I use them here. We do things here in our workplace for the wellbeing of our workers, but the important bit for us is we have the safe system of work in place first.
You've spoken a lot about design, Jacqui, in this, and designing your work well. What does that mean, Michelle, in a small business context?
Well, one thing that we do, and I think we spoke about it in the last podcast as well, when we talk about setting up a business, in the first instance, one of our considerations must be, how do we set a business up safely? And we do it when it comes to physical risks. For instance, you're not going to have a fryer with lots of oil in it close to where you're making the hamburgers, because, you know, someone's going to be using the fryer, and then you're making your hamburgers next to that. Then it's easy to get splashes and oil burns and things like that. So how do we look at safety by design when we're talking about psychosocial hazards? And one of the things that we need to consider are relationships in the workplace. Giving people time out, giving them a break. So let's say, for instance, and we unfortunately in our society this does happen, we have, when we're dealing with front-facing, when we're dealing with people, we can be exposed to workplace violence and aggression. And as a small business, how do you manage that for your workplace? Well, if someone's just had a pretty awful interaction with a customer, then it's not okay for that person to continue standing exactly where that happened and have to go on and continue with their work. Give them a little bit of a break. Let them go for a walk. Let them have a coffee. Some places do that really, really well, but we need to see more small businesses focusing on keeping people safe and healthy.
There's a really good initiative underway, Women in Transport, because they did really good research in relation to around people travelling and travelling safely. And so I just really wanted to really highlight some of the great work that they're doing, because as a woman myself, as a small business owner, a lot of stuff I do travel in, I've travelled all over Australia, travelling really early in the morning, late at night, making sure that staff get to and from where they've got to be safely, and doing check-ins. I think check-ins is a really, really powerful thing, giving them tools to be able to be connected to the workplace as well, and making sure our people are safe. And listen to what they're saying and respect what they're saying. If they're not feeling safe or they're having issues, making the time to actually connect with them and to hear what they're saying, and not to be judgmental of that. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that in.
We're throwing that into the bottom line. Say if you're a transport company and you've got to get so many clicks from here to there, does it work in the same way?
Well, we've seen that in the media, haven't we? And we've seen how this goes horribly wrong as well.
Because you've got a small business trucking company.
I would much rather do that well than end up in the coroner's court and my picture on the front page of the paper because a truck's rolled and people have been killed or injured. It's really clear for me.
And we speak often about that, not just the legal obligation but the moral obligation to do safety well.
And
does it differ across genders, do you think?
Well, another thing I'm really passionate about is women in construction. I think they're doing some great work in raising the profile. They've got some fantastic initiatives around there, and having those conversations about those male-dominant areas, industries.
Yeah. Do the male industries talk amongst themselves in a similar open way as perhaps women do to address the safety concerns? I'm just trying to get to the crux of that sort of the issue, because I think there's probably...
when you look at sexual harassment and harassment or bullying and harassment in general, I still think we've got a little way to go.
Only a little?
Well, I'm trying to be positive.
Yeah, and here's me, the person who was talking about positive stories.
Look, you've only got to be on LinkedIn or listen to the news, and unfortunately we hear about those things that have gone wrong, but I think that we are getting better in raising the profile. Do we have still a fair way to go? Absolutely, but I think it's better than where it used to be.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's about having people that really champion that.
I love that about our young people. Our young people, will just not tolerate any form of sexual harassment, which I just think is such an amazing thing.
But then they often leave.
Yes, that's
true. They
true.
speak up and then they often leave because they don't feel safe.
Well, often
going
they
back
don't speak up in workplaces.
They don't speak up because they might feel it will follow them.
Yeah.
I really love what you saying before about ACT, and you're doing some incredible work, and I think it's a really, really powerful tool about getting that messaging out there. So if we develop a new policy or a procedure, how do we know that the people on the ground are actually getting that information and know that? So that's the stuff that I've been seeing around women in construction, women in transport, is lifting the profile. We don't all have to necessarily agree, do women in construction or whatever that is, but we are lifting their profile and we're raising awareness. And I think that's a powerful thing, about really challenging people's perspectives on some of those things.
It comes down to what you've both said is conversations, like getting your workforce to tell you how they feel at work and what they've noticed. So is there a way that can be formalised, or is it always an informal sort of a safety discussion around the water cooler or regular training built into the small businesses' work
Everyone needs to be trained to do the job that they're employed to do. And must be inducted. And there's some really sort of simple, tangible things that workplaces can make sure that they're doing. So I spoke earlier about our small business checklist. So our inspectors, a number of our inspectors, took out a whole lot of our checklists and just dropped them off at small businesses around the ACT and talked to them about it and just said, look, this is a small business checklist. It's to help you with
I love this.
safety. Yeah. And they weren't there to do an inspection. We specifically went out, and I think some of our, perhaps our comms people, I know Alice went out. So our comms people went out. So there was a whole lot of people from our organisation. We printed off heaps and we just dropped them off and had a little bit of a conversation with people saying, look, you're required to comply with work health and safety legislation, and this small business checklist may help you to do that. But we're also putting together a small business kit, a toolkit to help small business comply with their obligations. The part of the difficulty around that is small business people are so time pressured, and so we can't expect them to come to us to seek the information, and that's why, we did this outreach work, and the plan is to do more of that.
Can I have a look at that checklist, Michelle?
Oh, absolutely.
I want to just see what.
I really love that, because when the inspector turns up at your workplace, isn't necessarily a scary thing.
Yeah,
I think building relationships is a really, really powerful thing.
I'm going to hand one over to you, Michelle, because they're
look at this.
reasonably practicable things.
They are.
Let's have a look. Consultation. I love it.
Worker
So
capability.
the first thing is worker
reporting,
capability, and
This is all on the WorkSafe ACT website, by the way, to get your small business. checklist if you don't
absolutely.
Get, a
So
drop in.
you'll see the question in there: is your workers' compensation insurance policy up to date? Like, that's a really simple thing that they can do. Yes or no. Check it. Have a look at it. Do you consult with other businesses when you share WHS responsibilities? Yes, no. Okay, maybe I need to do that. It's we hope really useful for small business in the ACT, but induction's incredible. One of the things that it's a requirement under the Work Health and Safety Act, and one of the things that a lot of workplaces don't do is to induct their workers. And inducting workers isn't just about here are the toilets and here's the kitchen. When it comes to work health and safety induction, it's a lot more than that. These are our policies. This is where you report if there is a safety breach, those sorts of things which are really important.
I think that's a great place to sort of
I love it.
wrap it up. Anything stand out to you in there, Michelle?
Well, I think for me, I'm really, really passionate about education, consultation, and reporting. But again, going back to when people walk through the door, this is the safety culture. This is the standard. The standard's up here. The standard's not down here. But in leadership, reinforcing, building those relationships. So if staff have any issues, you're an approachable person to have a conversation with. Yeah.
So if a small business owner could walk away with just one action item from this discussion, what would it be?
Yeah, well, I just kind of think, the work health and safety, it's not a scary thing. I think there's incredible tools and resources. I guess it's just changing narrative, changing the culture around some of those phrases I was saying before. Well, I'm a sole trader, work health and safety doesn't have to relate to me. But also get into those networks and build relationships with other people. I think, some of those businesses, mentoring other businesses. So what businesses are doing this really, really well? I think that mentorship, and there's great networks that are out there happening, doing really, really good things. And not just, bringing people together, but actually, going through some of these work health and safety things, I think is a really powerful tool.
Yeah. I want to flip the whole thing around systems of work, and a system of work which relies on controlling the behaviours of others is not a safe system. So we know in those front-facing, we're talking about that. We can't control what our customers do. We can't control what the people coming into our business do because we don't have control of their behaviour. But I've seen some really good things around town, and even I know, like my doctor's surgery, for instance, they have signs up. We do not tolerate abusive behaviour. You'll be asked to leave. We've seen the stuffs in supermarkets. We have zero tolerance of abusive and aggressive language. Those sorts of things popping up now are starting to raise a lot of awareness around how people should behave. Like, we live in a stressful society, but everyone's stressed. And, you know, everyone's dealing with issues other than at the workplace. But for heaven's sake, can we just be kind to each other?
There's your word, kindness. I
did that just for you, Michelle.
That's right.
But I would not argue. I guess my response to that is when we do have people that come in that aren't behaving well, we need to be able to respond appropriately as well. And I think that's another good piece of work across some of the sectors that people are doing really, really well. Setting that bar, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The behaviour you walk past is the behaviour you accept.
So where can small businesses find more information around this, wherever they are in the country?
So there are lots of places, and firstly, I'll always go to the WHS regulator in your jurisdiction, and for those in the ACT, it's WorkSafe ACT. Safe Work Australia have some amazing resources, including research, which is fantastic. Superfran, which is I've already referred to. There's new access for small business, ahead of small business, and there's business.gov.au. So go on, have a look, and if you're not sure and you do want to know what your obligations are, then give us a call, and one of our inspectors will have a chat with you.
I love that. I just want to add quickly, you're doing some incredible events though as well.
Yeah,
you do make
trying to get a message out.
Health and safety interesting.
Oh,
relevant. You do, because I think I constantly say that it's a topic that people will groan at when they think they have to go and do it, but actually...
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean,
absolutely.
The great thing about work health and safety is it actually improves your workplace and it makes people's lives better. So not only... of course, it's going to be interesting to me. I'm the WHS regulator. But not only is it interesting, but it's useful.
And you stay healthy and well.
Yep,
and,
which is
from
what we
the
want.
Well-being perspective, but from the
and we want
body
that for
perspective.
everyone. We want that for everyone.
And that opportunity to connect, I think, is a really powerful thing, especially for small business, especially if you're kind of doing it on your own. That ability to be able to come to one of the events and connect with others, I think that's really, really important. Community, connection and kindness.
On that, give us a quick plug for She Inspires Me, a great podcast. This is not your first rodeo podcast.
Oh, I've got an incredible podcast, because she's got the Courage to Lead, which interviews some of the most influential women in the country. And I'm looking at this lovely lady over here going, So we focused on 2024. I launched Women at Work, so that's something I'm really passionate about. So she inspires me. She's got the Courage to Lead. Is focused on women at work. So really encourage everyone to go on to www.sheinspiresmeaustralia.com and have a look at the incredible work that we're doing. But Spotify, she's got the Courage to Lead, podcast 3. That's incredible.
Okay, and on Spotify.
And 25,000 followers. So send some our way, will you, Michelle?
No, because I want to help you.
That's right. There's plenty of room for a WorkSafe podcast. Thank you for joining us in this episode. Thank you to you both for your expertise.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a lot of fun and, incredible opportunity and honour to be here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for being here. And, of course, Lish, who is going to end up being our work health and safety consultant, I think, because she's becoming so versed in this field.
For learning. Certainly. Thank you. And thanks for listening. Make sure you follow us on whatever channel you're listening to us on, and share the word. Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Bye.